What's going on, bottom line viewers? It's Mitch back here for another NFL video. It's part 2 of the NFL Power Rankings post free agency. Who are the best teams in the NFL after NFL free agency 2018? Who are the teams that improved the most? Who are the teams that are at the top and near contenderville in the NFL? At number 16, I have the Detroit Lions. The Detroit Lions are kind of like the Patriots in a way with this offseason. They made a lot of small Patriot-like moves. Matt Patricia comes in. I think he's going to improve their defense overall just from a schematical standpoint. Obviously, you have Matt Stafford at quarterback, and overall their offense is pretty decent. They added LeGarrette Blount to their running back core, so I think that's going to help, giving them sort of a guy that can be a thumper for them and a red zone back. They also still have Theo Riddick to catch balls out of the backfield. Amir Abdullah can spell in there, so that's not a bad rotation. Their offensive line was really injured last year, but I think it is pretty good when it's all healthy and, in there. I think Luke Wilson could be a better, more positive add at tight end. Receiver is good already. Then you have on defense a lot of questions. Secondary, outside of Darius Slay and Glover Quinn, is still sort of a question for them, but Darius Slay is a stud and will be utilized in this defense amazingly by Matt Patricia. Don't worry about that. Defensive line outside of Ezekiel Ansah is a huge question mark, and linebacker is still a question mark. So this defense has not a lot of talent, but I think Matt Patricia, with what we've seen, what he can do with the Patriots' talent on defense, can make them better than they really are. And I did like a lot of their moves towards their defense, the small moves in free agency. So I think the Lions are a borderline playoff team. And then at number 15, I have the 49ers. And a lot of this is about Kyle and Jimmy. Jimmy at quarterback, Kyle at coach. This is a dynamic combination that I think is going to rule the NFC West and the NFC for a long time. You have Richburg at center, who they added, which I think was a great add specifically for this offense. Richard Sherman on defense, which was an amazing add for their defense, for their leadership core, for the maturity of this team and on the field. And I think that they were really hot at the end of last season, and I think that was no mistake. They made a lot of strides when Jimmy became quarterback, and they scored a lot of points. I think their offense is going to be very good. And I think the fall of Seattle is coming, so that means that the 49ers are going to take a rise. At number 14, the Tennessee Titans. They added Malcolm Butler and Dion Lewis, two Patriots, to their team. I like Mike Vrabel coming in as the coach. I think he's going to make some strides there in terms of just giving this team a lot more confidence. And I like the way he's going to be running the team from that standpoint. Malcolm Butler definitely improves their secondary. All of a sudden, their secondary is pretty good. Then they have a defense and front seven that overall is solid. Jarrell Casey being the star of that. Then you have on the offense a pretty good offensive line when it comes to run blocking. So you have Dion Lewis and Derrick Henry as a dynamic combination to give you multiple looks and multiple different backs and styles. Marcus Mariota and the receivers are the biggest question. Delaney Walker is going to get it done. He's always going to get it done. But Marcus Mariota, what can Vrabel get out of him? What can their new offense and LaFleur get out of him? That's a huge question. But I think the Titans are pretty talented and wouldn't surprise me if they're back in the playoffs. So that's my tier number 4, which is just outside the playoff conversation. At tier number 3, I have the playoff teams that are sort of, on the edge. Like they're in the playoffs, but they're sort of at the back of the playoffs. So at number 13, I have the Kansas City Chiefs. The Kansas City Chiefs, biggest question they need to answer is, how legit is Patrick Mahomes? That's a huge question, obviously. So is he going to be as good as Alex Smith was last year? Because Alex Smith was good last year. Let's not forget that. But Patrick Mahomes has a huge ceiling. If they can get the best out of Patrick Mahomes right away, we're talking about a Super Bowl caliber team. I really think that they can be that good if Patrick Mahomes is that good. I don't think he will be that good in season 1, though. I think he's going to be good for a rookie because he still is a rookie technically, but I don't think he's going to be a stud. So in season 1, that is. But I think they have an explosive offense for sure. You look at this offense, they have Tyreek Hill. They added Sammy Watkins. They're getting Chris Conley back. They have an okay offensive line. It's shown promise in the past. Travis Kelce is a beast at tight end. Kareem Hunt, they need to give him the ball more. Let's just say that, but he's good. And then on defense, they're getting their leader. They're getting Eric Berry back, who is the best safety in the league when he's healthy. Then they have at linebacker, they added Anthony Hitchens, which I think was an underrated add, but they did sort of overpay him. Justin Houston can still have to get after the quarterback. D Ford can do that as well. Chris Jones is a good run stopper. So I like what they have on defense outside of their corner position, which needs a lot of work, but they'll probably add someone in the draft. I do like Kendall Fuller in terms of that trade. So I think that the Chiefs are probably a more talented team than they were last year. Outside of getting rid of Peters at corner, I don't really, I think that this team got better. And I think that this team just needs to answer the question of whether Mahomes can be the answer this year. Like, I think this team can be really good in the next couple of years. I just don't know if it's this year right away. So at number 13, I have the Chiefs. At number 12, I have the Carolina Panthers. Biggest thing, Cam Newton. He's a beast. He can carry a team by himself. Cam Newton is the man, and I think he's going to carry this team to at least 8 wins no matter what. Then you look at the rest of the team. I mean, their front seven is back. That's the biggest thing with this team. I think their combination between Cam and the front seven will be able to get wins. Because their front seven, you look at it, it's strong. They have arguably the second best D-tackle duo in the league. Probably the second best. I don't know why I said arguably. The second best defensive tackle unit outside of the Rams. They have Quan Short. They have Dontari Poe. That's going to stop a lot of run games. That's for sure. You have Julius Peppers, who could still get after the quarterback. There's no question. Mario Addison is an underrated player. The linebacker position with Luke Kuechly is going to hold it down. Thomas Davis, Shaq Thompson had a pretty good year last year. So that front seven, studs everywhere, and they'll be able to shut down the run game and get after the quarterback. The secondary still has some questions. I would have really liked them to had Brashard Breeland on their team to go along with James Bradberry. I think that would have been a solid combination at corner. Now there's still a lot of questions on who's going to play the opposite side of James Bradberry. Maybe we see them draft somebody at that position. I would not be opposed to that. The safety position has a lot of questions. They got rid of Coleman. They still have Mike Adams, who I think played decent for them, but I think the other free safety position with Colin Jones, don't know if he's the answer there. And the offensive line is the biggest question on this team. Getting rid of their best offensive lineman was a huge loss, obviously, but Greg Olsen should be back more full-time. Cam Newton is there. McCaffrey. They need another running back, that's for sure. But their receiver position has definitely improved. They get back Curtis Samuel, who looked promising in parts. They have Devin Funchess, who had a breakout year last year. Torrey Smith is definitely an upgrade at the position. I like Jarius Wright as a signing. So I think this team got better and got worse in certain areas, but I think they're around the same. And I think that's why I have them at number 12. At number 11, I have the Houston Texans. The Houston Texans is one of the young promising teams in the NFL. They have a lot of great. I mean, they have Deshaun Watson at quarterback, who I think is special. They have Hopkins and Fuller at receiver. That is great. Then you look at the defense, front seven, great. J.J. Watt, Jadeveon Clowney, Whitney Merciless, good linebackers, great. Tyrann Mathieu, awesome. Other than that, though, team has a lot of holes. Tight end, running back, is Lamar Miller and Freeman enough? I think so. I think so. And with Deshaun Watson at quarterback, they'll definitely improve with their play. But they're not studs by any means. I mean, their offensive line is extremely still weak. So that is a huge question. So tight end, offensive line, still questions. Defensively, corners, still a question to me. I mean, they have Jonathan Joseph. They added Colvin to the corner unit. But I don't think that's like a strength or a weakness. It's kind of in the middle. So overall, the Texans are a good playoff caliber team with a lot of promise in the caliber to be a surprise Super Bowl team. But I don't think that they're overall, like, for sure. Like, they could definitely miss the playoffs. So at number 11, I have the Texans. At number 10, I have the Chargers. Actually, I think the Chargers are the most talented team that nobody is talking about. As I said last year, the Chargers are extremely talented. They probably should have made the playoffs last year if it wasn't for a kicker or two, and if, the Ravens wouldn't have blown it at the end of the year, but it is what it is. So the Chargers, Phillip Rivers, quarterback, still a good player, still going to get it done, still clutch when he needs to be. Melvin Gordon is probably one of the most underrated backs that nobody talks about, again, because he plays for the Chargers, I guess. Keenan Allen, one of the top receivers in the league. I think the receiver position is good. Travis Benjamin had a decent year last year. They're getting Mike Williams back. Tyrell Williams is pretty good. Offensive line has improved. They added Mike Pouncey. Overall, they were good at protecting the passer with Russell Okung, Dan Feeney. Forrest Lamp is coming back. That's going to be a huge addition. That was their first-round pick, I think, or one of their second-round pick from last year. He didn't even play, so he'll be in there. Hunter Henry. I like the Virgil Green signing as sort of a fullback tight end combination. Then you have on defense Joey Bosa and Melvin Ingram. I don't need to say much more there. Corey Legit, Brandon Mebane in the inside is decent. Linebacker still needs to add a player or two, but I think with some of the players they do have, like Denzel Perryman and Jatavius Brown, and those guys I think are pretty okay, but they need to add someone there, I think. Corner is studs. Casey Hayward, Jason Verrett. Jason Verrett needs to stay on the field. Desmond King, Trevor Williams, those two players are good too. I think they might have the best corner position in the NFL. Then you look at strong safety and free safety. I don't know if they're re-signing Trey Boston, but I'd like them to, because outside of, a die, I don't know if he's really that good. He's okay, but Trey Boston was huge for them last year, and I'd really like to see them re-sign him. But overall, the Chargers have offensive talent, defensive talent, and would I like to suggest that they should trade for OBJ? That's just a thought. So that's my tier number 3, Chargers, Texans, Panthers, and Chiefs. At tier number 2, at number 9 is the Atlanta Falcons, and the Falcons are still young. They're still solid all around, but I think that they lost some good players in free agency, so I don't think they're quite as good as they were last year in terms of talent. Their coaching, I don't know if the offensive coordinator thing is still a huge question to me. It's the biggest decline they've had over the past couple of years, and that's the biggest thing that held them back last year. Was they didn't have Kyle Shanahan to call the plays. Instead, they have Steve Sarkisian, and I think that's still holding their offense back. But I still think they have a lot of talent, like I said. I think their defense is only getting better, even though they lost Claiborne and Poe. They have studs around the field, like Deion Jones. And so I think the Falcons, Matt Ryan, he's still there. Freeman, Coleman, still there. Julio, still there. They still have a lot of guys, obviously. Their offensive line's still good. They still have a lot of studs. I just think that they lost a couple of players that were important to their team, like Poe, Claiborne, and Gabriel. At number 8, I have the Green Bay Packers. The Packers should be back because they have Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is, if he's not the best quarterback in the league, he's second. Then you have Mo Wilkerson and Jimmy Graham adding to the team. Obviously, you lost Jordy Nelson, who's going to be a big loss in terms of chemistry with Aaron Rodgers. But does he really have it anymore in terms of athleticism is a huge question. But I think Jimmy Graham, obviously, is going to bring a red zone presence that I think Aaron Rodgers will use to perfection. But it's going to be interesting to see how they move him around and to see how much McCarthy is changing his offense, because there's been rumblings of that happening. Mo Wilkerson, I think, was their best add of the offseason. He's going to add a pass rusher and a run stopper in their 3-4 defense. He comes in with some familiarity there. I think their defense could definitely be better than last year, and I think that their secondary should improve with the young players that were playing there. I'm looking forward to see what they do in the draft, but I think the Packers are a team that could be a sneaky contender in the NFC. At number 7, I have the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think this was a typical free agency for the Steelers. Not a lot of ads, not a lot of huge names, but I think there were a couple decent ones. I like the Bostic ad at linebacker, and I also like the safety ad of Burnett, who used to play for the Packers. I think that definitely improves that position and improves some of the depth on their team. There's a huge Le'Veon Bell thing. Are they going to trade him? Are they not going to trade him? What's the thing? Are they going to franchise him? Sign him? I have no idea, and I don't think Bell knows either, or the team even knows. They're still a top team because they have a really good offense with a really good offensive line. They have great receivers. They have Big Ben. So they're still going to get it done on offense, even if Bell's there or not. Defensively, they still have a lot of questions. Corner, secondary, overall, still questions. Their defensive line and pass rush wasn't bad last year. I think they are decent enough. We'll see how Watt comes in his second year, if he can improve. Linebacker without Shazier is going to be a really big thing, but I think the Steelers are still a good enough team to be a top 4 team in the AFC. Then you have at number 6, the Jacksonville Jaguars, who I think are improved, actually. Outside of their quarterback, I think they are probably the best team in the NFL. They improved their tight end. I really like what they did there with Austin Seferian-Jenkins. And who was the other guy they added? But they added 2 pretty good players at the tight end position. And then they improved their strength along the offensive line. That was good. Obviously, they brought in the best offensive lineman on the market. They paid him huge money, but they got it done. Norwell is going to improve their offense. He's going to improve their run game, their offense in general. Niles Paul was the other ad at tight end. I like that ad as well. Leonard Fournette is only going to improve and be more healthy this year, and I like what he has behind him in TJ Yeldon and Corey Grant. The receiver position, they added Dante Moncrief. They did get rid of Allen Robinson and also Allen Hurns, but I think Moncrief is just as good as Allen Hurns, and they didn't even have Allen Robinson last year, so it doesn't matter. Their defense are studs everywhere. They were basically their only move they made is Puslesny retired, which I don't know is a huge loss, and then they added DJ Hayden and got rid of Colvin. I think that's a decline, but I don't think that's a huge decline. So overall, I think this team offensively improved, defensively got a little bit worse, but they're still the best defense in the NFL. So the Jaguars could be a Super Bowl team this year if Blake Bortles gives them similar production to last year, but I don't think that Blake Bortles is the answer at quarterback. I think he's the worst starting quarterback in the NFL, and ultimately will probably hold them back from winning a Super Bowl, but that's why I have the Jaguars at 6 and not number 1. So that's my tier number 2. At number 5, starting off tier number 1, these 5 teams to me are Super Bowl contenders. At this point, I have the New Orleans Saints. Very underrated offseason. Demario Davis, I think, was a great add, who's the best linebacker in free agency for me. They added also Patrick Robinson, who's graded as the best slot corner in the NFL last year for the Philadelphia Eagles. Obviously brings some experience on that defense that needs it. And those 2 players are going to help at 2 positions that they needed some help. I think their team overall was very young last year, which I think is only going to improve this year. Sean Payton, obviously, great coach. Quarterback, Drew Brees, great quarterback. They have a great run game. They have explosive offense with Michael Thomas, who continues to improve and impress me as the years go on. And I think that, obviously, the Saints are a team that I think not a lot of people are paying attention to, because I think there are other teams in the NFC that everybody's all like, oh my God, look at this team and that team. But I think the Saints could be the team to sneak up on them. At number 4, I have the LA Rams. Very flashy offseason. This is one of the teams that people are paying attention to. Aqib Talib, Marcus Peters, Aaron Donald, Ndamukong Suh on that defense. Obviously going to be huge and an improvement on that defense. And with that pass rush combination with that secondary, they should be dangerous. Similar to what the Chargers have in a way. But they also have a better coordinator, and they have Wade Phillips, who is arguably the best defensive coordinator in the game. My biggest question with the Rams is 2 things. Obviously, I love Sean McVay and what he can do offensively, and Todd Gurley, but they still have a weakness at receiver. Outside of Robert Woods, they don't really have a proven receiver. Cooper Kupp's pretty decent at slot, but they don't have a number 1. Their tight end is Their linebacker is still a huge weakness for me. I don't know if I really trust Jared Goff to be a player that can get it done against elite defenses. So Goff is a question, receiver and linebacker, but I still think that the Rams are going to be a contender in the NFC. At number 3, I have the Minnesota Vikings. Kirk Cousins, biggest ad that they had this offseason of any team. I think it improves them to a Super Bowl team that can win the Super Bowl. They have a defense that is definitely ready, plus they added Sheldon Richardson, so that's huge. They have a great balance on both sides of the ball, whether it's defense and offense. Great on both sides. Dalvin Cook was their second biggest ad because he was hurt last year. He is a stud, and he's going to give them an improvement from McKinnon, and he's going to be a guy that can do it all and be a go-to running back. Latavius Murray wasn't bad as well last year. So you have an offense with Kirk Cousins, Dalvin Cook, Latavius Murray, Kyle Rudolph, Stephon Diggs, Adam Thielen. That's a good offense, plus a pretty decent offensive line. Not great. They need to improve that unit, but that's their biggest weakness is offensive line, to be honest. And if they want to win against the Rams and the Eagles, they're going to need to improve that unit. But I think that the Vikings have everything else to be a Super Bowl team. And number 2, I have the New England Patriots. A lot of teams, or a lot of people, I should say, are talking about their big name losses. like Malcolm Butler, like Nate Solder, like Dion Lewis. But overall, I thought the New England Patriots, especially on defense, improved. When you look at all the players they're getting back 3 Pro Bowl players. They're getting back their best offensive lineman in Marcus Cannon, their best defensive player in Dante Hightower, and their best go-to receiver in Julian Edelman. So you have Julian Edelman, Brandon Cooks, Rob Gronkowski, and Tom Brady. That offense is already good right there. I don't even really need to name the rest of their offense. I think that they made some under-the-radar free agency moves. Jason McCourty at corner to replace Malcolm Butler. I think that's around the same caliber player if McCourty plays the same way he played last year. Danny Shelton is definitely going to improve their run defense. Adrian Claiborne is going to add to their pass rush, which they really needed. I still think they need to add to their linebacker position. I wouldn't mind another corner or defensive lineman as a fan of the team. And they needed left tackle. But I think that they made some nice signings. And Jeremy Hill could be an under-the-radar, the next LeGarrette Blount for New England. That's a question that you could ask. But I think that they added studs from the injury report, and they added some really good under-the-radar signings in free agency that I think puts the Patriots somewhere around where they were last year, but I think their defense should improve, and I think that's why the Patriots, I have some faith in them this year. At number 1, the Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles, they're still the Super Bowl champions. They get back Carson Wentz, which was arguably the biggest add of the offseason. They did not lose much. They re-signed a lot of their players that they needed to re-sign. They replaced Torrey Smith with Mike Wallace, so that's pretty much a wash. And Michael Bennett, that trade would have been huge for them, but it looks like they're going to have to release him. So overall, the Eagles are pretty much the same team with what they had with Carson Wentz. That might be a question because is that going to be enough for them to win another Super Bowl? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. But at this point, you have to give it to them because they're the Super Bowl champs. They still have a good defense. They're getting some players back from injury, so that will help. And their receiving core, their running back core is talented enough to get it done. And their offensive line is arguably the best in the NFL. So that's my tier number 1, and my number 1 slot is the Philadelphia Eagles. You have the Eagles, Patriots, Vikings, Rams, and Saints as teams that I see as Super Bowl contenders. But that is my power rankings for the NFL post-free agency. It was a long one, but I had a lot to explain and a lot to go over. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, hit the subscribe button if you're new. Like the video, and I'll see you next time here on The Bottom Line View for more NFL coverage, draft coverage coming, and let me know any other topics you want me to cover in the comments section. It's Mitch. Peace out.